I'll give you 5 minutes to get acquainted. Dr. Dave, if you want to take it from here.
Sure. I'm Dave Ulrich. I'm a professor. Welcome to my home. This is a new world where we get to peek into people's personal lives. It's still better to do in person. I've done a few in person. I'm a professor at the University of Michigan, the Ross School of Business at the Business School. I've been there for about since before most people were born, 1982. I'm there half-time doing mostly work in executive programs, and then travel and do a little bit of writing.
Welcome. Alaina, let's go with you since you are at the same university.
Yes, well, Dr. Dave, nice to meet you. I am somewhat tangentially involved with the University of Michigan. I did studies there under Noel Tishy in the business school, and it was actually a great team of research individuals from the University of Michigan that worked with me some years ago to create an online psychometric tool called the Passion Profiler. In fact, there were folks, I think maybe that were studying under you at the time, who became part of that team. But I have been doing work with leaders and teams all over the world, helping them understand their passions and how to align those with the work that they do and the goals that they have set out to achieve, and how it affects them both personally and professionally. I am a former HR escapee, former HR executive, recovering, I say, for many years. But I've been doing this work with absolute joy, and it's my passion, I guess I should say.
Welcome.
So nice to meet all of you.
Welcome, Alaina.
Thank you.
Bruce, let's go with you.
Yeah, hi. Well, I'm Bruce Rosenstein. I'm the managing editor of Leader to Leader, which is a co-publication of the Frances Hesselbein Leadership Forum, which is now part of the University of Pittsburgh, and also John Wiley and Josie Bass. And I've been the managing editor for 10 years. I wrote for the journal a couple of times before that. I've had the great pleasure of working with Dave on several articles and Alaina on 2 articles, over this long 10-year period. And I've written 2 books about Peter Drucker, the father of modern management. The first was in 2009, Living in More Than One World, How Peter Drucker's Wisdom Can Inspire and Transform Your Life. And then in 2013, Create Your Future the Peter Drucker Way. So Abe, thanks for having me again. I loved being part of the symposium last year, and I'm really happy to be back this year.
It's wonderful to have you. We have Oleg as well as last year, and of course, Dr. Dave. Now, Dr. Dave, I'm announcing, he's a lifetime guest on the show, so he could come anytime he wants. As a privilege to that, you can ask the guest of honor, the president, the question of your choice, and you can ask any of the panelists the question of your choice. So you have that option. Abir, let's go with you.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Abir El Shaban. I have PhD from Washington State University. And now I'm the founder, director of IC Consulting, which is Innovate Your Classroom for training teachers how to use technology in their teaching. Also, I have the IC for Language and Education program, where I teach English and French as a foreign language to students from all over the place. Yeah, so it's honor and pleasure to be surrounded by such thought leaders like you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Dr. Oleg.
Oh, I'm still human, just Oleg. I'm Oleg Konovalov. I'm on the further side of this world, so I'm facing midnight. I'm now at Moscow, Russia, and this is my second time on this incredible conversation. Great to see you all. Abraham, thank you for inviting. Bruce, great. Brenda, Dave, guys. My passion and my aim is to explore a vision as a practical field for all leaders. And you can't explore a vision without positivity. This is the main ingredient of it. It adds that energy. And so for me, it's important. I do consulting, speaking, CSUT coaching, and I do write books. And probably I write books as a matter for inventing myself again and again, because I'm exploring something new and then I'm putting it on the paper. It's not about, I hate writing, but it's a matter of sharing. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And welcome again. Brenda, let's go with you.
Well, thank you, Abe. Thank you for inviting me to be with such a great group of people. I appreciate that. I'm based in Singapore. Alaina talked about escaping. I escaped the corporate world after 20 years. I did that for many years, a senior leader in big corporations, and decided I knew it was lonely at the top. So when I left the corporate world, I wanted to help in that regard. And so I coach C-suite executives around the world. I'm a global executive coach and a member of the $1 Billion Coaches Club. And I work with those leaders really from the inside out. You know, we always focus on the exterior, but the truth is real leadership starts on the inside. So I do a lot of work with the inside aspects of life and how you manage life and work from that perspective. I've written 11 books on coaching and branding and leadership as a whole. So I'm just delighted to be here with you today and look forward to a great conversation.
Welcome. We had a good conversation last time, and I'm looking forward to that as well. So welcome to all of you again to the second virtual Global Thought Leader Symposium. I'm your humble moderator, Abraham. So to the audience, welcome to all of you. I see you're coming in. And as I said earlier, this symposium is really for you and about you. So if you have any question, please go ahead and write it in the chat. And also you can tell us what area you're from, location, city, state. And if you have any question, go ahead and put it in and during break time or so, I'll go ahead and throw them and ask these questions. And then we'll get you a reply on it. Optimism. It's a word that is successful outcome in the future. To have it, we can just go with it without being hopeful. Being hopeful and being optimist really is the key to anything we do. To reach that level, it isn't something we can come overnight and say, oh, I am hopeful or I am an optimist, because it doesn't happen. It's a mindset. And I hope a symposium like this, through your insights, we can provide the training to be hopeful and be positive, as you said, Dr. Oleg. Provide them the insights and the mindset of being hopeful. So the way we're going to do this, we're going to do that in a random order. So we're going to ask the question to a thought leader and then ask, and then we jump to the second one. Randomly, I selected this time again, Dr. Dave Ulrich. So he's going to be the first one. The theme of today's symposium, the theme is Optimism, Creating a Better Tomorrow. The color is pink. Why do we have pink? It's to celebrate the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So just out of celebration and feeling the pain that individuals suffer through the cancer, bring awareness to it. Also, another cause we would like to bring is disability and people with disability. If there's anybody on the call that you don't employ people with disability, please do, because they need to have inclusion within the work environment. So having said that, let me start with Dr. Dave. Last year, we ended on, you said to us, are we there yet? There was a story, I think, and then the best is yet to come. How far did we come, sir, since last year?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for, I was hoping I'd go last so that all I would have to say is, yes, I agree with everything, but we're never going to get there because there is a moving target. But what does there look like? I think sometimes when something happens, many of our mental models look at what's wrong. And we look at what went wrong, what can I improve? And I'm going to take on some sacred cows, so I will be provocative to get the discussion and to learn from my esteemed colleagues. A lot of things look at what's wrong. In psychology, and my wife's a psychologist, you mentioned her, it's a study of pathology, of what are the disorders, anxiety, depression, etc. Well, a number of years, not too long ago, along came a professor or a thought leader who was the head of an APA named Martin Seligman. And he, along with some other folks, were the founders of what's called positive psychology. Instead of looking at what's wrong and try to solve that in a therapeutic model, look at what's right and try to build on it. And I really love that mental adjustment. Instead of saying, here's what's wrong, how do we improve? Say, here's what's right, how can we go forward and build on it? And Dr. Seligman has done some brilliant research around positive psychology, the science of happiness. There's a whole series of things that really flowed from him and Csikszentmihalyi. And if you can spell his name, you get a bonus point. I can't spell his name. He talked about, oh, you can, I stand corrected. You probably studied with him, but he studied what's right, flow, get into the flow, get into something that looks good. And so the sacred cow I'm going to go after, there's a lot of attention to grit resilience, look back, what worked, what didn't, how do you have true grit? I like to look forward. How do you discover what can be? How do you look forward and say, what's the opportunity? And so are we there yet? I hope I'm never there, because I'll give you the final example. I'm teaching this week at the University of Michigan, the first in-person 2-week executive program, and I don't teach a lot there, I'm half-time. And I haven't taught in person the 2-week program for 2 years. And so as I decided to put my notes together, I found this week, I have 50% new material than I had 2 years ago in November. And I'm going, that's cool. That means I'm still doing what Dr. Oleg says. Oleg, not doctor. He talks about your vision and your passion and recreate. I hope I'm always recreating and anticipating what can be. So, boy, I've thrown out a lot of names. Seligman's work, Csikszentmihalyi's work, the science of happiness. My sense is that's the theory that really drives the value of optimism.
Nicely said. Nicely said. So the way we're going to do this later on, if you want to elaborate, if one of the thought leaders, one of you said anything and somebody wants to elaborate, we can do that as well. We can allow that, not only questions and answers. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Dave. This is very insightful. Alaina, let's go with you. So employee engagement is essential in producing feedback within an organization. Which one of the two types of employees do you prefer to work for your organization, and why? An optimist employee or a pessimist one?
Well, I don't think we get the chance to make that decision very often. I mean, obviously, we love working with people who are optimists because they bring such positive energy to the organization, to others. If there's a virus you want to get infected with, it's that one, right? That virus of optimism, passion, positivity. The reality is, though, that most of the people that are inside organizations and that you're working with are not working from that place. If you believe any of the data from Gallup, for example, where they measure engagement in organizations, the engagement level in the United States, for example, over some last 20 years has been fairly consistent. It's somewhere around 35-36% of the population is engaged, which means they feel excited about what they're doing every day. Life doesn't begin on Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock when they can go home for the weekend, and end for them on Sunday when they realize Monday morning they have to come back into their place of employment. They feel this sense of passion and purpose in their work, and there's meaning in what they do. The reality is, if only 35 or 36% of the population who is measured by Gallup studies are actually engaged, that means a whole bunch of people are not. And a whole bunch of people are not feeling optimistic. They're not the optimists that we all want to work with. In fact, some of them range somewhere between being what Gallup calls disengaged, meaning I'm kind of doing what I need to do, trying to look busy, trying to accomplish what's required of me, but not give any extra discretionary effort to the organization. And the others are what Gallup called actively disengaged. They're a very small percentage of that total disengaged population, somewhere in the neighborhood of 13% or 15%.
That's a large number, though.
A large number when you think about the impact that they have on productivity, because
Yes.
people who are actively disengaged are pessimists of the worst kind. They're miserable. They're complaining about their experience. They're, putting their resume out. They're letting everybody know that they are unhappy where they are, and telling friends and others, don't apply to the organizations that I'm a part of because it's not a great place to be. So they're sort of the poison in the well, so to speak. So
what caused it? What caused this?
It's really interesting. All kinds of studies have been done to look at that. One of the major causes of why somebody would not have a good experience at work happens to be their relationship with their boss. Do I feel like I'm having a great relationship with my boss? And I believe ultimately individuals have the best experiences at work when they feel seen, they feel valued, and they feel included. So
Excellent.
when it comes to this notion of do you want an optimist or a pessimist, the reality is that leaders have to figure out how to work with everyone, and they have to figure out how do we get more of the people who are feeling disengaged with the organization or with the work to become part of the group that's engaged. Because you can't solve this problem by just going out saying, I'm going to hope to just, collect as many optimistic people as I can possibly collect and hire them all into the organization. Because the figures, the data suggest that there aren't as many out there as we'd like there to be. So what are we doing culturally to create an environment where people can feel engaged, they can feel motivated by what they're doing, and they can feel a deep sense of purpose and passion in their work. I think that's the real challenge that we're up against.
I like it. I like that. I have a lot of questions on this, and we'll cover that. And one of them is optimism something we can learn? Thank you so much. Bruce, let's go to you. Great to see you again.
Great to see you.
And do you consider yourself an optimist? Having heard what Alaina has said about that?
Yeah. Believe me, I mean, as I said, I worked with Alaina on a couple of different articles. So, and Dave on his articles, and just really everybody that I work with, you drink all this stuff in, and you have to be, sure, I consider myself to be an optimist, as I imagine in varying degrees everybody on the panel is, and maybe most of the people calling in today. But obviously that varies, and you have to temper it with some other things. But I think really, yes, I certainly am. And I think when you combine it with the kind of work I do in terms of writing and editing, that you have to be optimistic. You have to be optimistic and think that what you're going to put out into the world is going to help people, because as we've been saying today, people do need the help. Organizations need the help. And if they are optimistic, they're not optimistic all the time. So how do you raise that up a little bit? So I feel that the creativity works into this, the creativity, all these people who really want to put in a lot of work to do their articles or to do their books, whatever it might be. The other point about that I'd like to make with this output of creativity that makes me optimistic is that it's never ending. All of us know that right now there's already way too many books and articles and what have you out there, videos, podcasts, than you'll ever be able to consume. If you live to be well over 100, you just won't, right? So, and it's going to keep coming, and really great stuff is going to keep coming. And I'm optimistic by that, by knowing that there's going to be great creative output in all sorts of forms that's going to keep coming, that's ideally going to improve the lives of people and improve organizations for all the things that we've started talking about today.
Thank you. So does it have to be organized? Is that something we guide? These, let's say, websites and books, do we have to put a drive out there that to organize such effort? Because it takes two to tango, and not everybody is aware of the impact of being an optimist. Do we have to create a drive, some sort, like a movement of sort, to say, hey, optimism really pays?
I'm not sure we do. I know there are people out there who kind of write about optimism, and they're on social media about, where that's their theme. I think this goes, though, under many different synonyms too. And I loved what Oleg said earlier about vision as a practice. I mean, what a cool idea. So maybe, can optimism be seen as a practice? But I think that, what Oleg said, it really struck me, because it was kind of like operationalizing something that to a lot of people can seem, well, what exactly is that? But he's talking about operationalizing it. So maybe we need to do the same thing with optimism.
With optimism, I think so too. Thank you so much, Bruce. Always insightful.
Can I offer an observation?
Yes.
Just about what Bruce said. One of the things that has occurred to me is that the last 18 months to 20 months that we've lived has been a learning laboratory for the practice of optimism, right? We've gone through some of the toughest situations any of us have ever experienced in our lives. And I think initially, many of us were shell-shocked by this experience. What does this mean? How are we going to stay locked down in our homes? What's happening with the economy? What's happening with our own businesses, et cetera? And I've seen person after person who you would probably label as an optimist make a decision that that's not going to end them. It's not going to reduce their creativity. It's not going to reduce the amount of work and quality work that they do. And in fact, they've done the opposite. They've leaned into their work, and they've asked themselves, from the body of work that I'm doing, what can I offer to the world now to help us navigate through this time period? So I think we have a lot to feel positive about when it comes to that. And in fact, maybe we're already beginning to see some of what you're asking for, Abraham, in the sense that people are saying, here's my offering. for
Yes.
this time that we're going through, and please partake in it and take what you can from it.
Yeah, to adapt only is not enough. You really have to have an action.
Mhm.
Thank you. Nice elaboration. I mean, Dr. Abir, let's go with you. Being hopeful is what you are known for. How did that begin?
Okay, so actually, it didn't begin with me. I would say that I was grateful that when I came to life, I found that my mother and my godfather, the man who raised me, both of them were like the most hopeful and optimistic people that I knew in my life, I have ever known. So you can say that part of it is genetic, the other one is environmental. However, parts, when we say environmental and part of it is genetic, this is actually what even research supports. It's like 50% is inherited genetic and 10% is environmental. What about the rest, the 40%? This is something I decided to choose. I acted on to be optimistic person. So, during the course of my life, I experienced all the ups and downs. I experienced how it feels when you are hopeful and how it feels when you are hopeless. The latter didn't do me any favor. So I chose to be a hopeful person. And this is why, even for my messages on social media, when I end them, I say, remember to stay always hopeful, because I know how incredible this word and this mindset in making, who we are, making us moving forward with our life. Many people say going to the gym is my lifestyle. Others say living a luxurious life is my lifestyle. Others would say, maybe following a healthy lifestyle or diet is my lifestyle. For me, I say being an optimistic being, this is my lifestyle. So this is me, and this is what I chose to be. I want to share a small thing. Okay. This is one of the things that I experienced myself. I'm sure like the scenarios could be different, but I'm sure one of us, maybe all of us, experienced something similar. So I lost my mom early on. In 1 month, she got sick and she passed away. I felt devastated and I was very sad, but I was content, not happy. Content, like this at least ended her suffers. So if we look at this model that maybe all of us, even our audience, have been through at one point of time, we would know that the first part is, what shapes who we are. It's part of life, this hardship, these troubles, this misfortune. But the second one is a choice, whether to keep this misfortune dragging you and leaving you in the same loop, or you choose to move forward and look at the half full of the glass. So yeah,
I love it.
Me what it does mean when I say stay always hopeful.
Really, it's the mindset and how we program ourselves. And Brenda, when I come to you, and there's a question on mindset, I'd like to explore that further with us.
Yeah.
Dr. Oleg, go ahead, Brenda, if you want to say anything before I go to Dr. Oleg.
Oh, no, feel free. But I 100% agree. It's a mindset. Yeah.
It's a mindset.
Mhm.
But Dr. Abir, before we go on, apologies and condolences for losing a mother. We've all lost loved ones. How did you see what's good in that? How were you able to process that so that, and many times that can be seen as a tragedy. What did you do that gave you the optimism?
Yeah, so if you know my mom, she's a phenomenal woman. Of course, everyone sees his mom as his hero. So she's an amazing woman in all levels. Like, I am from Libya. It's a very conservative society. And to learn, like, she was the third woman to drive a car early on. it was not something acceptable. She was a school principal all her life, active, outgoing woman in an Arabic conservative community. It's not an easy thing. Also, as soon as Gaddafi allowed people to have their private corporates or schools or whatever, she was like the third woman to start her private school, and she succeeded. She built a great reputation in Benghazi city. This is where I am from. So when you know like such a woman who hates to stay at home, like at our home, we cannot stay without a maid, someone to run, you know, to manage the house, to clean, to cook, because all of her life, she devoted herself to her student, to her teachers, you know, outgoing, helping, doing whatever she feels like she has to do. And all of a sudden, like in 1 month, she had kidney failure. And then in 1 month, we find like we are doing stuff that we never thought that this woman will go through. And if she kept living this way, my mom will not be happy. I know her. So she will not accept to be like the person to help her, to see us like sad, or maybe to her, it's not for us. Wasting time, taking care of her, providing for her, she will not be happy. I know that. So even though for me, I wish if she stayed, I wish I would serve her with my heart, with everything I can. But when I see, you know, what happened to her from her position, she will not be happy. And during the 2 weeks that she was laying on her bed, you can see that. You can see like, I don't want you to see me this one. I am the strong woman, the outgoing, that, like to serve me all. So I think maybe that's part of it. Maybe this is better for her.
I hear, and Dr. Abe, I don't want to hold back from Oleg and Brenda, but I hear two things that are really helpful for me. One is when you think of her in positive places. Your memories are not about the last 2 weeks when she was in her deathbed. It's about her joy and her zest, and that's what you carry forward. And two, you care for her enough to let her go from the grief and the pain that she's in, that she would not be happy. That's really helpful. To hold the optimism through the memories that we carry and through understanding how other people respond to the things that they're experiencing. That was helpful for me. Thank you.
So the thought is the late mom really was the leader in this environment that set the tone to Abir to be a positive and to be an optimist. It's setting the tone and who sets it within the environment. And the mindset you had is because, or you have now, is because of your mom's vision in a way. And let's go to vision with Dr. Oleg. Hi, Dr. Oleg. You and I talked about vision on many occasions. We can really we can't count how many times. Vision has always been about the future, and optimism leads to a successful outcome in the future. Explain for us this relationship between vision, optimism, in the future, and how we can bring this successful outcome or realized vision audience with us. What do I do now? Tell me, what do I do now? So let's bring this optimism of the future or an outcome of the future to the now. How can we do that?
Oh, thank you, Abraham. Actually, it's a great question, and I love this type of questions. But I will start from the opposite side.
Okay.
The majority of people are really afraid of the future. You know, they love their past. They're looking into the past as they can't change something. No, but they could dress something. And they're afraid of the future. And I gladly met a lot of visionaries, and they're all positive. And it's about courage. Courage, it's a skill, which must be developed when you're talking about a future. The majority of fears are given to us by friends, parents, society. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't think this way. I was brought up in the Soviet Union. You know, it's just like hammered every day. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this. I hardly remember what I can't do, but I remember the long list of things that I'm not supposed to do, which I ignored successfully. And what is it all about? Majority of my clients, of course, participants, they're asking, what shall I do in order to prepare for all these sessions? Say, hey, upscale your positivity, because we can't create a positive future if we're positive now. If you're afraid of the future, why are you touching it? Leave it alone. Live your day to day, and that's it. Forget about it. You know, and if you think vision is the strongest emotion that you could experience yourself, and it's incredibly positive, and it reveals your passion, your excitement, and it goes viral around you. You become an inspirational power station for others because of this positivity. You're making others a multipliers of your vision. And vision itself is a belief into the positive future. And well, in a good human sense, we're all trying to be better. If we're not better tomorrow, then we'll be better the day after. That's okay. We're growing, we're getting better, we're learning. It's very important to understand that you don't expect positive changes in your life because of some other people that will come and make your life better. No, we are the masters of our future, ourselves. We are acting on it. We're acting on our thoughts, not somebody else's thoughts. You know, and to be the master of this, we must be the sources of this positivity, of this optimism ourselves today, because we are creating our future that might happen within a year, within 5 years, today. We talk now about something that will have impact within the time. And I believe that our positive thoughts have that impact on a human evolution, not in terms how long our tail will be, no, but in terms how we would live and how the next generation will look at us as artifacts, living artifacts. And therefore, it's quite important to understand the future is already here, and it's in our vision because we're already making it a reality. And if we're afraid of our future, well, go to futurists. They're very good at selling fares from stages for huge money with no result because no action needed. Just be afraid of it. But if we're ready to create something good, be positive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Always insightful. So life is how you make it, Brenda. That's what he's telling us.
It is indeed. Life is what you make it. And I like what Oleg said, because the truth is vision. We've been visioning our whole lives.
Yeah.
We're visioning our whole lives. Everything we're experiencing is a result of a vision that we've had. We don't often know it consciously, but subconsciously we've been making these choices that have created the lives that we have. So my key point I would say about optimism, it is a mindset. We've talked about that, but at every moment, mindset is a choice, and we all have this choice, no matter what the circumstances. You know, I always think of Nelson Mandela in prison for 27 years, but he had a choice. He had a choice of mindset, and we have this same choice today. You know, I can choose to view the world through a lens of despair and frustration and fear and anxiety. And, you know, what Alaina said earlier, we went through this shock originally, and it was like, okay, I have a choice. How do I want to look at what's going on right now? Do I want to look at this through the lens of anxiety and fear, or do I want to look at it through the lens of the potentiality of what's going on right now is extraordinary. It is extraordinary. You know, I think of, we are living in extraordinary times. We are living in a time when we can make a vaccine in a year that saves millions of people's lives. We can connect on virtual platforms with people all around the world with a push of a button. I mean, these are things our ancestors, not even ancestors 100 years ago, 15 years ago, only dreamed about. And we are living this right now. There is so much reason to be optimistic in the world today. When you sit and look at it through that lens, when you take off the lens of fear and you take off the lens of, you know, concerns and anxiety, it's extraordinary. And yet we tend not to do that. I posted, and I recently ran for a recent book I launched, I ran a poll. And I asked the question, if the world today were a person, what 5 adjectives would you use to describe that person? And I got thousands of responses in from 34 countries all across 6 continents. Almost 70% of the words were negative. Some form of confused, conflicted, angry, selfish, sad, uncertain, fearful. I see it very differently. This is the most extraordinary time. I cannot imagine a better time to be alive than right now. It's extraordinary what we're living. And when we can stop and look at it that way, from that optimistic mindset, I think the lid comes off.
That's what I like about this symposium, because we have diverse thoughts. One of you will say, oh, let's be hopeful. But you come and tell us, being hopeful is okay, but it isn't really the case. It's your mindset. Being hopeful is just a term we use to feel better, but the mindset will determine what the outcome.
Yeah, and let me explain why. I mean, Dr. Dave earlier mentioned the concept of the cognitive therapy. If you think of cognitive behavioral therapy, think of it as a pyramid. What you think drives how you feel. Now, we don't see any of that. That's all underneath the radar. But what we think and what we feel drives how we behave. And how we behave gets our outcomes. So it all starts with what we think and what we feel, but we give so much focus to what's going on out here. And when we do that, we become victims of what's out here, as opposed to being in charge of what's in here, which is going to get us the outcomes that we want out here. So we really have to focus on, what are we thinking? What are we believing? What are we feeling? And we often ignore that. We often just focus on what's going on out here, the actions, the behaviors, the way we're looking, the way we're sounding. We don't get into the real gut of it, which is what's going on the inside. And that is the mindset.
The mindset. So the balance between the inside and the outside.
Exactly.
And that's what we hope to achieve today by reaching a point of consensus point, how we can achieve that. Thank you again. Dr. Dave, let's go back to you. In your nature, you are an optimist. I learned that as observing you. How did you develop that, sir? And why it is important for us to be optimists?
I'm going to repeat Abir's story. I think we have mentors, and often that's parents, it's family, it's siblings, it's idea mentors. In my office, I have pictures of my father and other people who've influenced me. And I think we adapt some of their insights, and it sounds like, Abir, you've adapted some. I hope your mother's legacy and DNA lives on through you. And I think all of us as leaders create visions that Oleg talks about that are consistent with those who created visions for us. And I really love the idea that optimism, or how we respond, is a choice. I love the quote from Carol Dweck: failure is an opportunity to learn. And that if you're not failing, you're not learning. And I love the quote from, by the way, all I'm doing is quoting other people who are my idea mentors, that you don't feed back, you feed forward. That's Marshall Goldsmith, that you're constantly trying to discover what's next. And I really love the idea that Alaina talked about, that in the midst of the crises that we're facing, which are huge, it's not just the pandemic crisis, there's a racial crisis, there's a social injustice crisis in countries around the world, there's political toxicity in almost every country, including the United States right now, there's emotional unwieldiness. How do I discover opportunity? How do I see that? And that's what I hear Brenda talking about. In the midst of that potential crisis, how do I seize and see opportunity? And what I'm picking up is, I love to see opportunity about what can be. My favorite question, and well, that's not true. We all have our top favorite question. Then we have 3 more. So in my 5 favorite questions is, what do you want? What do you want? I love that question. And it's fun to listen to Brenda's thought process about her coaching. When I'm coaching people, that's almost always my first question. Tell me what you want. What are your passions, your interests, your values? Because my line is, if you don't define what you want, somebody else will define it for you. Probably not in your interest. But when you know what you want, and I'll tell a very quick story since we're talking about family. About 7 years ago, I'm in the airport where I live in the United States, off to a country around the other side of the world. And it's a Sunday morning, it's spring. I call my mom. Mom, how are you? And my mom is an eternal optimist who grew up in poverty. Oh, it's a beautiful day. The birds are singing. The sun is shining. Your father had a stroke. Have a good trip. And I said, go back, Mom. What do you mean? Well, your dad's in the hospital and it's pretty serious, but you've got to go do your duty. This is my mom's mantra. You've got to do what you're asked to do. I'm going to get emotional here. How serious was it? She said, it's very serious. Long story short, I called the client in another country where I was speaking on Tuesday. And I said, my father's sick. I'm going to go home. And the client said, how sick is he? And I said, that's an unusual question. because I don't miss engagements. Nobody on this call misses engagements, but nor do I. What do you want is the question. And there was no hesitancy. And that person said to me, and I won't say the company or the country, if you don't show up on Tuesday, we will blackmail you and you will never again come to our company or in our country. By the way, I don't get angry very often. And I said, go to hell. And I hung up and I went home. And as I thought about that, and I spent a day with my father before he passed, I know what I want. And by the way, they blackmailed me. And I'm going, you don't have to blackmail me. I wouldn't come back. I mean, I'm not going to work for a company that has that mantra. But the comment behind that is, what do you want? What do you want? What are your passions? What are your interests? Oleg calls it vision, and we could put that bundle together in a nice package. I hope is in my coaching and working with others, that's one of my favorite questions. What is wanted? If we don't know what we want, we're going to have difficulty with our vision. We're going to have difficulty with our inside outside. So that's the question that and now I should end this, and I'm going way too long. It changes. It changes. I mean, the fundamental values are there, but every once in a while, I just want to go for a walk with my wife. So I go interrupt her and I say, we're going for a walk. Why? I don't know, but I want to go for a walk. Let's go. And that, anyway, that's the question that Dr. Abe really captures me. What do you want? What do you want?
So as a coach, I'm following up on this, and I know we're going to jump to Alaina soon. So as a coach, you ask, what do you want? Brenda is also the same thing to you. This is someone who paid a certain amount of money to be better, change the environment they're in mindset. What do we say to someone who's not privileged enough to pay? Do you, like somebody on the call and somebody that's privileged to hire a coach? And you being here today, presenting these insights to them, what do you want? You look within and try to answer that. And then from there, because what I want to bring is, I want to change the mindset within an individual that unable to hire someone, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a coach. How can we do that with their limited resources? Is it a word, a smile?
Well, let me ask others. It's a word, it's a smile, and it's also self-coaching. I ask myself that question frequently. And am I doing today what I want? Am I doing the things that will bring meaning to me? By the way, the second question is, who do I serve? Because if our wants are narcissistic and self-interest, they're going to be short-term and they're not going to build value for anybody. So how do my wants enable somebody else to improve? By the way, that's the personal question I ask every day in my prayer or meditation or whatever form of reflection we do. Who can I serve today? Who can I serve today? And some days I get no answer and I go, thank you. I don't have to do anything nice to anybody. That is going to be a great day. And some days I get an answer. This week I got the impression in my mind, I don't know where that comes from, was send a note to this person who you've not talked to for about 15 months. And I got a sweet note back. I was struggling today. Your note helped me. Boy, I think somewhere in our recesses, and I don't know where that comes from, whatever theology we have or psychological well-being we have, what do you want? Who do you serve? I like the combination of those two questions. And for me, that's where optimism comes, is learning, but learning that will create value for somebody else. I'm betting Bruce does that. Bruce, you're not publishing articles for your ego. I assume you're publishing articles that will help people in various places have a better experience. I mean, leader to leader, that metaphor is just a wonderful one. So anyway, I'll just stop with that. I
love it. So
Dr. A, can I just make a comment on that?
Yes,
because
sure.
Talk about coaching, and yes, you're right. I mean, high-end coaching it's expensive and a lot of people can't afford that. But what Dr. Dave said was so critical, self-coaching.
Please call me Dave. Please call me Dave.
All right.
I
could call you Lord of the Universe. I could call you whatever you would like.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. Anyway, so what Dave said I really appreciated, because the truth is self-coaching is critical, and we're all self-coaching all the time. Again, we don't realize it. It's the little voice that's going inside. What is that voice is saying to you? Is it the voice of the inner coach? I call it the inner coach, the one that's really uplifting you and supporting you, encouraging you, or is it the one of the inner defeatist? And this is a choice we all have. It doesn't cost a penny. At any point in time, you can choose which voice to listen to. The other thing, again, look at the world we live in today. As we mentioned earlier, YouTube's out there with millions of videos of motivation, inspiration, optimism. If you really want to take a self-study that doesn't cost you anything, we live in a time when you can do that at the drop of a hat and a push of a button.
Very true.
So,
Thank you. Thank you for the follow-up. So to the audience and to our future listeners, the first step to be an optimist is forget about yourself and think of others. Forget the I and move to the we. So this is the first step, and we're going to follow through like that as we progress in this symposium. Alaina, how do you help your client's employee make a positive difference? Does being hopeful is one of them?
I've rarely seen any positive difference be made from a mindset of scarcity or fear. So hopeful absolutely makes a big difference. But the focus of my work with clients, getting them to this place, is really to help them understand self. And specifically back to the conversation we were just having, understanding the beliefs that they have that are guiding beliefs in their lives and the beliefs that they carry that are limiting beliefs in their lives, and understanding the difference between those two and what results they get from that mindset of guiding beliefs, that mindset of limiting beliefs is so critical, because I think very often people want to make a positive difference and don't realize that they have a set of limiting beliefs, the little voices they're telling that are in their heads that are holding them back. The things that say, I'll never be successful, or it won't happen for me, or this is only good, these good things only happen to somebody else. Those are limiting beliefs that prevent you from actually soaring and actually contributing your very best. So there's a big part of the work that I do that's built around reflection. And those are inexpensive things you can do for yourself. They cost you the price of a journal and a pen. And I really do believe in the pen to paper model, because brain science tells us that we capture our thoughts and our reflections on paper rather than through electronic media. We actually trigger different memory and recall centers in our brain. So it's really beneficial to buy a journal and a pen.
Is that a daily practice?
Well, it depends on the individual and whether or not they're comfortable with and have a practice of journaling already, or whether it's new to them. I say, and it's also based on their passion archetype, by the way. There are some passions that will love to, journal and have thousands of pages of things that they write, and others like me who love bullet points of your friends. Three things you learned about yourself this week through your work experiences. 3 things that you learned about yourself this week through your personal life experiences. You look at those 3 things and you ask yourself the question, what does this inform me about what I want to do next week? More of, or differently, or the same? And then write that down. And then week after week, you start looking back through those pages and you start to see patterns of things that maybe you've conquered some of these things that you were struggling with. Maybe you've discovered new things that you're actually pretty good at that you didn't even appreciate. And as a consequence, you're not leveraging those things. The other aspect of what I do with the employees in my client organizations is try to help them understand what their passions are. These are the deep drivers of their behaviors that emanate from their purpose, what they're here to accomplish, even if they don't know and can't articulate what that purpose looks like in 25 words or less. I can help them understand what their passions are. And if they can understand what their passions are and the strengths those passions imbue them with, they have the opportunity to lean into those passions and use them to make a positive difference. I believe everybody already has tools within them to make a positive difference. And the trick really is getting rid of the limiting beliefs that don't, embracing the guiding beliefs that do, utilizing their passions, and having the sense of responsibility and the courage to pursue what they need to pursue in order to make that positive difference. We have to believe we have a responsibility to make a positive difference in the world in order to do it.
I like it. Do we have to find a purpose first and put our passion behind it? Or do we find a passion and find a purpose later?
I've been getting at purpose through the back door for the last 15 years. So what I do is I actually look at the passions that purpose causes you to demonstrate. And I say, let's work with those. That will point you, if you trace that back to their origin, you'll get to the purpose. So continue to look for opportunities for those passions to be expressed. And there really is a pretty easy formula. Think of it as a Venn diagram. You're going to want to look for opportunities where you have the ability to use your skills or to learn or to develop skills that you're interested in learning. You have an environment where you're able to have an outlet for your passions, and you have an environment that honors your values. When you can operate where those 3 things intersect, there's all to play for: skills, passions, and values. If I have a choice between road A and road B, and road A has the opportunity for me to utilize my passions and road B doesn't, pretty simple. I go down road A. I start exploring what's down there for me and how can I bring these passions forward to make a positive difference, not only in my life, but in the lives of all others that I touch. And to the statement that was being made, David, this was you talking about how do I serve and what do I want? I can tell you that the practice of asking that question for yourself each day is so powerful. Every single time I'm going to work with a client or do a workshop with a large group, or do a speaking presentation for a group, I'm always thinking to myself, or I ask every day, how can I serve this group of people best? Please guide me, give me direction on how I can serve them best, because there's someone I know I'm there to make a positive difference for. I may not know who they are when I start. I usually do know who they are by the end of it, but I know there's someone there I'm destined to make a positive difference for, and I just need to show up as my best self in order to do it.
Nicely said. Thank you. Bruce, let's go with you. How does a sense of optimism specifically relate to your work as a writer and an editor?
Well, I think I just go back to what I had said before, is that these are inherently optimistic things. You have to be optimistic that what you're going to be putting out there as a writer or an editor is going to help people, is going to make a difference. Kind of a little bit what Dave said earlier. I do want to just kind of reflect. Alaina was mentioning about reflection. So here's a reflection from just what I've heard. And I love taking notes, and I really haven't been able to take too much in the way of notes. But this kind of also gets to this idea of superabundance or almost overabundance. So what we've heard here, and this is just what's in my memory from the past however long we've been on, half hour, 45 minutes, is almost maybe more than people can take in for, and this is it's a good thing in a way, right? But there's tons of topics that we've discussed, all of which really sound quite good. And I think these are even just topics beyond in the books that the panelists have written, or articles that we've written. So a lot of these concepts that every one of the speakers have mentioned, if we gather them all together, it would almost be like too much for people, kind of wondering what's what. And I don't know whether that's good or bad. It's just an observation. It's a reflection, as Alaina said, that it's good to reflect on things. So what does it mean? Also, another thing is that those of us on the panel, the terminology we've been hearing is, if not second nature to us, it's things we're familiar with. We're familiar with a lot of this terminology. We don't have to look it up, but not everybody is that way. And that could be part of the reason for the disconnect for the things we're talking about versus what Alaina said earlier about all these people in workplaces who are not in a good place. Hopefully could be.
Bruce, I'm going to go back to where you just were, because I'm with you. I'm feeling a tsunami of stuff. I mean, I get overwhelmed with TED Talks, with posts, with stuff. How do you filter that and separate signal from noise and identify what really matters to me? Do you have any guidelines that would help me and others think about that? Because Brenda said, I think we've all, and by the way, every one of us are guilty of it. We put out a lot of stuff. But how do I help people filter the stuff that would give them guidance and help for them? Any advice for me as I struggle with that?
Yeah, that's really tough. I mean, I think recognizing quality, recognizing relevance is really important. And it's not taught. It's not something that's really taught. I might go back here to, I also have a very long-standing place in the library and information science world. I worked 21 years for USA Today newspaper in their corporate library. And I've taught for many years as an adjunct at Catholic University in their library and information science program. And so a lot of that is based around, how do you recognize good information, especially when you're working in a corporate sense, as I did, and you're working with reporters and editors who need information and good information really quickly. So, we're not going to send everybody back to library school. That's obviously not going to happen. But I will put in a good word for libraries of all types: corporate libraries, academic libraries, public libraries, for, they kind of want to help you in these types of ventures. And I would imagine for, some of the folks in this call who are part of universities that, have university libraries that, they really want to help. Librarianship is you're talking about service here. Librarianship is a huge service profession. I mean, that's one of their major reasons for being. So I hadn't really thought about this, but since you asked, I will put in a good word for the librarians of the world, and to maybe see what they have to say and see what they've written and see what's on library websites. And libraries are like one of the few places that you can call and show up in person and get a human being who is trained in these things, who's willing and wants to help you. So that's my answer.
Thank you.
So
Very
Bruce,
nice.
even before that was one thing that's occurring to me, and it's something that I often advise people to do. Think about this as a marathon. It's not a sprint. So this journey to self-discovery, to really deeply understanding how you can become more of the person that you want to be, how you can contribute more in the world, is not something that happens overnight. So when you do that little journaling exercise, for example, you'll start to see some themes emerge.
Right.
Maybe you take one theme at a time, and that's what you do a deep dive on in the literature, in TED Talks and other resources that are available, because you can't do it all, right? You're right. We have, as you said, Dave, a tsunami of information coming at us. So we're drinking from a fire hose every day with so much information, and we can't discern what's of value to us unless we decide to become more focused on what it is we're looking for. And then you have a better chance of weighing, am I getting quality information from this source versus this source? And the other thing I would also say is the information that comes to you that's of highest value needs to ring a bell within you of common sense. Like, I'm hearing this message, what this person is saying makes sense to me. I don't have to go out and get 5 advanced degrees in order to understand what they're saying. It resonates as true inside of me, because if it does, you're much more likely to put it into practice.
Exactly.
It's a great idea. Yeah.
You have to believe in it to put it into practice.
Mm-hmm.
We are scheduled for a 5 minutes break. Do you like us to continue, or should we take 5 minutes break? It's your call.
I'm happy to continue.
Should we continue?
I would continue.
All right, so we'll continue.
By the way, what I just heard, Alaina, I'm going to put my words. I love 3 things, and Bruce, you had 2 of them, Alaina, 1. How do I separate signal from noise? It resonates with me. It's relevant to me, and there's some rigor to it. It's not just, I do believe that rigor counts, that there is some value. I've seen some people post recently, I've done research. Let me tell you what I found. What's your sample? My 20 friends on LinkedIn. I got to be honest, I love your friends, but I don't love them that much. And I think, Bruce, you must see that I edited a journal for a decade, and it's amazing some of the lack of rigor that sometimes comes in.
Unfortunately, yes.
So, Alaina, thank you. I really like that resonate piece, because we have these inner voices. We've all talked about, maybe we're all psychologically deranged because we all talked about inner voices, but we've all got some instinct inside that says, that's one worth listening to.
This is intuition, though. This is intuition.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. So
Well,
the audience.
Can I
Okay.
just say something
Yeah, go
on
ahead.
that? Because the word resonate is extremely important, because resonate is a vibration, it's a feeling. Resonate, when it resonates, it's a feeling within you. And it comes back to, I mentioned about the cognitive behavioral therapy, which is what we think drives how we feel. And when you feel it, that's what's going to drive the outcome. And we are so afraid of feelings. It's extraordinary to me, especially in the workplace. Well, jokingly with my clients, just as a joke, it's the other F word, feelings, can't say feelings in the workplace, right?
Is that focus? Is that like a vision focus word?
Something like that. But the point is, we're so afraid of feelings, and yet we are resonant feeling human beings. And when we take the time, like Alaina said, to listen and feel that resonance, that inner guide, that inner coach will just lead us in the right direction. We kind of overthink things sometimes. Sometimes it's as simple as just resonating and feeling.
Brenda,
I appreciated Abir sharing about her mother.
Mhm.
And Abir, when you told that story, I could feel something. I could feel the resonance, if I use resonate, I could feel the resonance you had with her, even though she's gone. And I don't think we should be afraid to share those feelings. I think we should help leaders. And if we get emotional, okay, we're emotional human beings. That's not a weakness. I think that's also part of the vision that Oleg has. A vision without feeling is not a vision. Anyway, thank you. That's really
it's
helpful.
Human, Dave. You're absolutely right. It's human. It's not, vision can be artificial. It reflects our deepest aspirations. And even those aspirations that majority of people can't articulate. And even when I coach people, it's about revealing their intuition, what they feel, whether do they want to go. And it's critical. You're right. Thank you.
I love the discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, step 2 of becoming an optimist is being vulnerable. It's okay. It's okay if you're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. So step 1 and step 2, I'm going to give you a few steps as I gather it from our talented thought leaders. Abir, let's go with you. Give me some of, let's talk about why some people are pessimists in general. Why are they pessimists?
Okay, so why people are pessimists? It's of course I made some research, and I'm curious to know why some people are always like frowning. It's hard to approach them. They are not outgoing, and I found that they are anything but not the optimist. For example, for their mindset, there are 2 main words that guide them, that dominate their mental disposition or state of mind, which is exaggeration and generalization. So unlike optimists, like we always, like during our course of life, everyone is not immune of having some sort of misfortunes or maybe bad luck or bad incidents. Optimist people like us, usually we tend to isolate these incidents. Yes, we try to find a solution. We try to learn from them, as Dr. Ulrich already said, like if we don't fail, we cannot learn. This is one of the quotes that he said. So we usually have these kind of incidents to shape who we are, to get the best out of us. However, for them, they tend to generalize and exaggerate. Like if, for example, one day they worked with a mean boss, they will think that all bosses or directors like this way, and this will hinder them from moving forward or maybe changing their perception of people or others. So generalization is not good. It's good only in science, but not in real life. So I think that's the thing. But if there is an advice I would share with them, it's a hopeful result or findings from research when they said like 50% of who we are is genetic. So optimistic is measurable. We can measure it. So maybe if you are in disadvantage in terms of genetic, maybe your parents are not as optimistic. So you have nothing to do about that. You need to accept it. However, you have to act on the 50% that are left. You have 10% from your environment. Like if you are around people who are negative, who are, trying to put you down all of the time, eliminate them, avoid them, block them. However, for the rest, it's your choice. So this is what researchers said. It's not me. Like the 40% you need to act as an individual on yourself. I want to change my mindset from being a person who exaggerates whenever something bad happens to me to something, okay, no, this, I have to learn from it. It happens to everyone else. Life can bring more other opportunities and possibilities and so on. So,
excellent.
so
Very well taken. Very well taken. I want to thank you so much, Abir. I want to acknowledge the audience. I mean, true, we have you here, but on the call with us, we have other thought leaders. I'd like to acknowledge John Spence. I'd like to acknowledge Avisha. I'd like to acknowledge Michael Duarte, Katie, James Petricola, Melissa Thomas. I mean, all of you, thank you so much for being with us on the call as well. We appreciate you. Dr. Oleg, vision is in the future. Tomorrow is in the future. being hopeful of a better tomorrow is a hope for a better future. We can't reach the future without passing through the trials of our present, the now. Can you tell me more? Elaborate on this.
Oh, good question.
Okay.
You know, I'm big on salmon fishing. I'm very big fan of this, in particular fishing in Arctic. And I know for fact, regardless of my experience, I know every stone on these rivers and I know how to cross them. I know for fact that I will swim into the river involuntarily for about 3-4 times in the icy water. You know, that is for sure. Life is experiment. Every trial is experiment. Even if I know that I'm confident it will take me a minute, I know that I could be washed away, you know, and then it's just, it's normal. It's okay. You know, life is an experiment itself, unless we just try to take it so certain that every disaster will take us off its saddle. You know, it's not a good thing. Think for a moment. Leo Tolstoy rewrote War and Peace for 12 times. SpaceX. Not all launches were successful, but they're doing great. You know, we all go through those things. All professional athletes with whom I have talked, whether Olympians or from different professional sports, they're all admitting every game is ever so different. You know, you could lose, and it's okay. It's a matter how you would stand up and fight again. It's all about this. You know, if we expect all things to happen according to the plan, we don't need leaders because things would be predicted. But as American military have a great, I love the saying, when you go to a fight, you fight a fight, you don't fight a plan. But we're still trying to think that everything is according to the plan. It's okay. I have lost so many times in my life that make me even stronger and more positive. That today, even when my wife is not happy about me for some strange reason, I'm not saying, hey, I'm not ideal, I'm just cool. And she gave up. You know, that's okay. And hope, as Churchill said, it's when you start again, when you fail. It's about this. And, you know, that's the beauty probably of this life. Then, you know, okay, I got into cold water. Nice. I have a reason for a cup of tea.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Very good insights, Dr. Oleg. Brenda, let's go to you. How can we help others see the best of tomorrow? And talk with me about the successful mindset.
Well, a successful mindset is a mindset that's going to give you what you desire. And as you know, we've talked about vision, we've talked about what you want. Dave talked about that, Oleg talked about vision. A mindset of success is what's going to give you what you desire. So you have to decide what that is. But I think the key to a successful mindset is one that shifts you out of viewing the world through a lens of fear into viewing the world through a lens of possibility, of potentiality. And I know that a lot of people don't agree with this, but I don't really believe that fear is our natural state. Okay, we're born with instinct and intuition, fear of heights, fear of falling, all those things. Those okay, fear, but the truth is they're more instinctual. Fear is not our natural state. Why do we love to be around babies? Because they have no fear. They're full of joy. They're full of possibility and potentiality. They're a white slate, a clean slate ready to be written. And fear is learned. I think we're born with what I call the joy of possibility. We are born with that, but we tend to cover it up over time. And by the time we're in our late teens, early 20s, I think we're one big walking bag of fear-based thoughts. Because we've learned fear, you know, don't touch the stove, don't talk to the neighbors, they're not like us. And we learn this over time, and suddenly it becomes our pre-programmed way of looking at the world. So a successful mindset, mindset is around looking at, am I choosing to look at the world through a place of fear, what is happening to me right now through fear, or am I choosing to look at it through this potentiality lens? What could be, what could come from this? And I think it's important, maybe this will resonate with some people listening. Unlike Dave and Abir, I didn't necessarily have the most positive role models. I'm not going to go into details, but unlike Abir, I wasn't able to walk away from this set of people either. Okay, so if you have someone raising you who doesn't have that mindset, you don't have a choice to walk away. Well, maybe you do today. I didn't have that choice when I was younger. So it's really important to point out that mindset choice doesn't come from somebody else. But what's really helpful is I think the opposites that life gives us can really serve us. That contrast, you can know if it feels right or it doesn't feel right. Again, it comes back to Alaina's point of resonation. Does it feel right to me to be that kind of person, to have that kind of mindset? We woefully overlook this. And if it doesn't feel right, you can choose the opposite. You don't have to be pre-programmed based on how you were raised or based on the society you grew up, based on the norms you were told when you were younger. So I think that contrast in life is what really serves us well. In fact, I think it's probably key to the human experience. And that's why you can have success no matter what the circumstances. And that comes back to why I think self-leadership is the most important form of leadership. You know, we talk about leadership, we think of leading others, but the truth is self-leadership, to me, I think it's the highest form of leadership there is. And I believe firmly that the frontier of leadership is at the micro level within each one of us. Because, you talked about helping others and we is a great place to focus. And I get that, but the truth is until we've done the work ourselves, we will not be great for others. Because no matter what we're doing, we've got to focus on what we're doing inside to help others eventually, but we have to do this work first.
What kind of help? Is it self-compassion help?
Oh, it can be a whole host of things. Self-awareness, foundational.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness is the foundation of it all, if you ask me. You know, we spend so much time focusing on others, we're not spending time on ourselves. It's the airplane mask analogy, right? We tend to put our mask on last. But the truth is, when we are better to ourselves, when we treat ourselves better, we will make far better humans to others. We will be far better colleagues, friends, peers, bosses, leaders to others. So I think we overlook the importance of doing the inner work first on ourselves. And that's the successful mindset.
Successful mindset. Wonderful. Optimally, welcome. Thank you for making the time and share your insights with us. Everyone, Ms. Krista Newkirk, the president of the University of Redlands. Ms. Krista, we have Dr. Dave Ulrich, Dr. Oleg, Ms. Brenda Bence, Ms. Abir El Shaban, Alaina Love, and of course, Bruce Rosenstein.
Having me. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. So we'll start with you directly. Krista recently, may I call you Krista or President Krista? Recently made history at the University of Redlands. After 113 years of the history of the university, she was appointed as the first female president. Number 12 to be exact. Congratulations. Now, the question to you as a higher education leader, what does this appointment mean to you personally? Please share with us the impact your appointment may have on female leadership in academia. Let's go back. Akramali again. You're my guest of honor, ma'am.
And that's again. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you better. Thank you so much for your humility in leadership and joining us. So let's go with the question, the same question. You're ready? If you're ready to answer, go ahead.
Sure. So you asked me what it meant to be the first female leader and what I would hope for that for the future. And I would hope that it would give other women who are working their way up the confidence to try for positions of leadership, you know, and the understanding that this is really attainable for women and for young girls. I would also hope that through my leadership, I can help to break the stigma and the paradigm of the double bind that so many women leaders face. And I don't know if you're familiar with this concept of the double bind for women in leadership, but that's the idea that women, if they have the attributes of a leader, that is that they are assertive and strong and confident, and then they are seen as not likable. And if they are seen as likable and getting along with people and such, then they're not seen as strong leaders. And so I think that that's still a challenge for a lot of women in leadership, and one that through showing different models of leadership, I hope we can break down and do away with finally.
It's a double sword because a female leader, she has to show that she's strong so she can compete with her male counterpart. So you come as a unique and genuine leader, female leader, saying, no, I have my own style of leadership. And that's what you're trying to prove, at least at the university. You did that at the Converse University College and then university, and now you're doing it at the University of Redlands.
Authentic, and, you know, being comfortable with putting yourself out there, you know, and being comfortable knowing that that's not going to resonate with everyone, but hopefully it resonates with most. If you're coming with the sincere purpose of trying to help the university, putting that organization and its people first, and then, you know, going back to Brenda, though, you still have to take care of yourself, right? But putting those that organization and the people first. And then really working with that team to try to do what's best to move us into the future is really my focus area.
Thank you so much for that. Now, the theme of the symposium is about optimism and how to create a better tomorrow. And the question to you is, what does optimism mean to you? And why do we have to be optimists?
I think we set a tone from the top that's really important. And so I think when you come in as a leader, you come in with a feeling or you project a feeling of pessimism, then people will start to believe that you doubt the ability for the organization to succeed. So I think it's really important that you set the tone from the top and the expectation from the top that we all approach this with optimism, with innovation, with a feeling of energy. And I think it's really critical. I think people tend to hear what they fear. And so you have to over communicate where you are to build that sense of optimism, to let them know what you see. But I also believe in that Stockdale paradox that you have to come at every situation with a sense of optimism, but also with an understanding of the realism so that you're being realistic about the challenges that you're confronting and you're preparing for the worst while always hoping and expecting for the best. And so I think it's by striking that balance that lead an organization through change and through challenges.
Thank you so much for that. So as you know, we started at 1 o'clock and it's 2:30 now. We finished round 2. We're going to do round 3 now, but we have half an hour remaining. And the last question is, what is your advice? We're going to start with Dr. Dave. Thank you so much, Krista. What is your advice to our audience and to the people listening to us later on when we broadcast this to the best way to create a better tomorrow? And this question to all of you. So we go to Dr. Dave and then we jump to Alaina and so on. Let's go with Dr. Dave. What's your best advice to people to create a better tomorrow?
I'm going to go back to the questions I've asked because I find these 4 questions very helpful. These are my coaching questions. What do you want? What are your passions, your strengths, your interests, your values? I like the 3 triads that we heard: values, skills, and passions. The intersection of that is, what do you want? Number 2, who do you serve? Because a better tomorrow is not about you. It's about how what you do makes somebody else better. Leadership is not about you. Leadership is how you make somebody else better. Third, let me add to those 2. How do you build? A better tomorrow needs to be institutionalized. I think long-term change is not just because the individual leader does a great job, but she or he creates an institution, a culture, a setting that outlives you. What do I want? Who do I serve? How do I build? And the 4th one for me is useful. It's, where am I? And I'll tell a very quick anecdote to show it. It's a religious anecdote from Judaism, Christianity, and Muslim. It's a story that don't worry about the Christianity of the story, but Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden. They make a mistake. They partake of the forbidden fruit. God comes down. He says, Adam, where are you? Well, for decades, I thought Adam was hiding behind a rock. Adam and Eve, where are you? Both of them. And then it hit me. God can see them behind a rock. I mean, that's kind of stupid. Adam, you're behind a rock. I can see you. Where are you? God doesn't ask stupid questions in that metaphor. The question he was asking, I think, or she was asking, depending on your theology, Adam, you made a mistake. And Eve, you made a mistake. Where are you relative to your mistake? Are you going to run and hide? Are you going to run into it? Where are you going to go? So those are my 4 questions. What do I want? And that's the intersection of values, skills, and passion. I love that Venn diagram. I think that's marvelous. Who do I serve? How do I build? How do I create something? And I think, Krista, I think your ability to create a university that will hopefully outlive you, that this is not about my identity. This is about the university, and I become less relevant as the president. And then 4, where am I on my journey? Which for me is the ability to run into that mistake. Adam, where are you? Eve, where are you? This is not physical. This is, where are you relative to your journey?
I love what you said. And also, how about where are you in reference to the human experience, in the journey of our experience as humans as well?
I love it. Same question. In the last 18 months, I've done some horrendous things wrong. And that's okay. That's okay. What did I learn?
I thought you're a perfect man, sir.
No, I won't say that. I'm not wearing long pants right now. I'm wearing shorts. I will confess that. And that's probably not a good idea to be on a panel call wearing shorts. So, and I didn't comb the back of my hair. I haven't had to comb the back of my hair for about 1.5 years. And it's been so delightful to have a bad hair day, the back of my hair. And that's okay. That's okay. And I think learning that feeling of compassion for others, that if I'm okay with my flaws, which I'm not, I don't want to be cavalier. I'm okay with some of yours. And those are my 4 questions. What do I want? Who do I serve? How do I build? And where am I?
Basically, respect the differences and move on. Thank you so much, sir. Alaina, same question. What is the best way to create a better tomorrow?
So I have a 4-step formula, just like Dave does. And it starts really with deeply understanding yourself and the ways you're meant to contribute to the world. I think that self-exploration is critical to deciding how you are going to contribute to making a better world and making a better tomorrow. Then I think having a mindset where you look at what you can give rather than what you can take from any situation or relationship that you're in is a very important part of the process as well. It has to be a selfless giving rather than let's see what's in it for me. And I think 3rd, deciding that you're going to pick one small thing or even one big thing that you're going to do and start doing it without comparing yourself to what other people are doing. I think we can get really tied up in somebody else is doing something bigger and better than I am, therefore my contribution is minimal. So I think it's really important. Pick one thing and just start doing it. And then I think the last one is remembering that 1,000 pebbles thrown into a pond create 1,000,000 ripples. So your job is just to go out and create the ripple.
Nicely said. Thank you so much. Bruce?
Well, first of all, I think people should just drink in what they've heard today and really think about it. And I think that would really help them as far as creating a better tomorrow, both for themselves and for others. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of what Alaina said about, kind of bullet points, and I'm just going to do some keywords here. One is perspective, and I'm not going to elaborate on them. I think they're sort of self-evident. Perspective, abundance, open-mindedness, creativity, grace, observation, and curiosity. So I think if you put all those things together, I think you can't help but end up with a better tomorrow. If not a better tomorrow, a better next day.
Better next day. Thank you. Abir?
I prepared a small piece of information and I would like to share it before I share my advice. First, I want you to know from my perspective, what's hope? Hope is a state of mind that invites us to perceive, as Brenda already said before, to perceive the world from a positive lens. This means that it has to do with your perception of yourself, the people around you, of the world. So if deep inside you believe that good things can happen and that life is full of positive opportunities or possibilities that are waiting for you, then I would like to say congratulations. You are one of the hopeful people. And of course, this will over time accumulate success or cultivate success. So for my advice to you in the theme of hope and hopefulness, I would say optimism, and take it from me, is the only quality that you need to possess to keep moving forward, and learn that we live in a life that's full of opportunities. Still, opportunities come to those who know how to attract them. So go and plant your seed.
Nicely said. Thank you so much. Oleg?
Okay, thank you, Abraham. Don't look, I will put like in a few seconds. Better tomorrow.
Because you're the
Have a
future,
vision.
you're the vision, you're the vision man.
You know, greater than you are, than your company, and it will become a magnet. Vision is very pragmatic. People will buy if soon they see the value for them. You know, vision comes when your conscious awareness of a problem that you want to solve for a benefit of others reaches its peak. It becomes that magnet for people, and it's based on really practical approach when you're aiming to make a difference for people. You wouldn't be alone. So it's already about pragmatic value of hope. You will exercise your confidence because you are visionary when you deliver your promises. We're not talking about politicians. They never deliver their promises. We're talking about business leaders that deliver their promises. So you become
some business leaders.
Okay, in a good sense. Be positive, be positive. You know, we're saying this most of them. So hope, we could look at it as a short term. I'm hopeful today, but tomorrow I could question this. But if we talk about long run vision, this hope that we could pass to the next generation as a legacy. This is quite important. Like Krista, for instance, she is now on an enormous task to make a difference for Redlands University. The result would be seen with a few generation of students after that. So it's a good understanding of hope, how it would impact people on the long run. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Brenda? And then after this, we'll go to the president.
Well, I'm going to go back to what I mentioned. Leo Tolstoy has a wonderful quote. He said, everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change themselves. And I think this is foundational. Work on yourself first. We want to be great leaders of others. That's great, but we need to be great leaders of ourselves first. We want to be a great parent. Yes, okay, but let's work on ourselves first. We want to be a great spouse. Yes, but let's work on ourselves first. We woefully underestimate how important it is to focus on ourselves. So I would say that is the key, because the inside job of life is much more important than the outside job. When we do the inside right through that cognitive behavioral therapy, we will end up getting the results that we want. So I would say optimism is a choice. We've said it again, but at every moment, am I seeing this situation through the lens of fear? Or am I seeing it through the lens of possibility and potentiality? What could come from this, honestly? And if we just ask ourselves that question at any point in time, then I think our lives will take dramatic shifts, because once we're really aware of that, remember, what we think and what we believe are foundational. So I think we have to watch our minds like a hawk, and don't fall into the belief that I'm a victim of what's going on outside, because that you will become a victim of what's going on outside when you do that, because what you focus on grows. So I firmly believe we are living in the most extraordinary time in the history of the world. And I think we can choose to view the world through the possibility, through a potential lens of possibility, and see what's coming out of this. I think it's going to be extraordinary. 100 years from now, we're going to look back in this and say, what an amazing start that was to the beginning of the rest of the world. So enjoy the journey. Yeah.
I love that. The journey is beautiful. So step 3 and 4, you are what you think. Be a self-compassionate plus compassionate person. Before we end up with President Krista, I have a question. I love her way in describing the purpose of education. So I'm going to allow, if I may, a minute or so for you, Krista, if you can talk.
Abir, did we hear your final comments?
I shared I
Okay,
shared the
got
quote.
it, got it, got it.
I-
I've got a page of notes, somebody to put pen to paper, and
Okay,
I'm
so
trying to
it's
take notes, so I've
it's
got them down.
about
Thank you.
optimism.
It's about optimism.
is the most important quality
Got
that
it, got it. I wrote it up here, not down here, so it took me a minute to find.
We have 20 minutes. We're going to talk about the purpose of education, and that will give us a chance, probably 10 minutes, to interact with Krista, because as Dave here is the lifetime guest, he has the right privilege to ask questions to our guest of honor, Krista, plus to any member of the panel. So prepare for that as well. What's the purpose of education? I love the way you put that. So what's the purpose of education?
I was going to go back to your prior question and say that was the easiest question, because building a better tomorrow is about investing in the future generation and preparing them with education. And the purpose of education, it's to open opportunities, it's to enrich lives. But I think it's summarized best by the ideals of the founder of my former institution. And that is that the purpose of education is to educate each person to be able to see clearly, decide wisely, and then act justly. And I truly think if you can, in this day and age, with the amount of information that's flowing, help individuals to discern the truth, to see clearly, and then to take all of their education and the environment and decide wisely, and then put that toward acting in a way that is just for everyone, we will see a better future. There's just no way you can't. And so that's really my guiding principle. I think it's incredibly important work, and every day we have to live that purpose.
Very nicely said. Very nicely said. We have 20 minutes to interact with each other and have Dr. Dave make his magic. But I want to let you know, Krista, we have Dr. Oleg, Dr. Dave. They came to our university and they visited my MBA class, and they are a bulldog. They were initiated as bulldogs. So Dr. Dave is very much familiar with the university, and so Dr. Oleg. And for the others, Bruce, probably, of course, I had the greetings from our dean, Dr. Tom. So when I told him we're going to be here, he said, please say hello to Bruce, because he had the chance to work with you before. And in the university, we have purposeful leadership. This is our School of Business, purposeful leadership. So the floor is yours, Dr. Dave.
I'm going to ask you to do something, and then I'll do a filler while you think about it. I've been sitting here, as I said, taking notes, because I think somebody said put pen to paper, and it helps me remember. Down at the bottom, which is why I forgot Abir, because I was trying to distill. And let me share what I'm going to ask you to do, and then I'll do a little bit of filler while you think about it. Bruce, your idea struck me. What are the words? Perspective, abundance. We just did some research with a big database, 29,000 people, and we've always had roles. You're a change agent, you're a strategic partner. What we did is we changed the metaphor to start with a verb, because in the world of unprecedented change that we all are living in, what's the verb? What's the verb that describes what we should do to change the world, to be optimistic? So I'm going to ask each of you to think for a few minutes, and I'll fill in a question to get you to think. So what are the verbs, which are action items? What are the verbs that people who listen in should do to create that future, to be optimistic? What are the verbs that come to your mind? Because I think verbs denote actions. I'd love to hear from you. I've been listening, and I've got about 8 verbs that people have shared today that really strike me as fascinating. But before and again, I don't want to bore you with stuff, but I would love to just hear verbs. I could do filler. I don't want to do filler. We're not going to go in order. Let's just brainstorm. Are there 8 or 10 verbs that just grab you? Just the verb that, because by the way, I studied English. I got kicked out of the English department because I did my honors thesis on the quality of the English department. This is the filler. I went in to present my thesis on the quality of the English department. The next day, the chairman called me and he said, that is a great, by the way, my conclusion was it wasn't a very good department. And I said, I'm like Beowulf in some of the old stuff. And they said, when you left, the faculty voted, and we had a unanimous decision for one of the first times as faculty that you will not graduate with a degree in English. So I got kicked out of the English department. But I've always loved words. And Bruce, I loved your words, really triggered me, but not adjectives, not nouns, verbs. Okay, who's got them? Let's just brainstorm real quick. And Abe, you as well? Let's
start with
just
Krista.
go, just speak up.
Let's start with Krista. Go ahead.
All right, I'll hit you with listen, love, and learn.
Boy, that sounds like a movie. Got it. Eat, pray, and whatever. Keep going. I just love this because these are verbs that they're action and they're, you know, okay, who's got some more?
I'm going to give you one. Think.
I think the most important is choose.
Oleg?
Think and act beyond, but in this sense, and forgive my English, I would be thinking beyond is a verb itself, would be.
You know, you speak such good English, you can get away with any word you want.
That's what I'm speculating on.
Yeah, I can guarantee your English is better than our collective Russian. Verbs, anyone, Abir, you had your hand up.
Create.
Create. That's Bruce. Then Alaina, you were trying to say something after that.
Dave, I'll give you a bunch of them.
Yeah, please.
Transform, heal, discover, conceive, create, process, teach, connect, care, build.
Nice. Thank you.
Abir?
Okay, be careful of what you tell to yourself, because your unconscious might translate everything and manifest them into reality. So we need to be cautious about that. Believe that you can. Listen to your inner self. You know, Brenda and Alaina talked about the, what's the name of the theory? It's the intention deficit disorder. Like we have no attention because of the noise that's around us. Be a change agent, change maker, love, and inspire.
Nice. So you have 5 minutes, Dr. Dave, to put all of these together.
No, I love it. I love it. You know let me tell you what I'm hearing. If I look at those words, it starts with ourself. I think, Brenda, that was your message. And I think I saw heads nodding. What is it I need to do to myself? I need to listen to myself. I need to love myself. I need to care for myself. I need to know myself. And I think that self-care precludes other service. And so if there's a bunch of verbs around the bucket of self, by the way, my PhD is in numerical taxonomy. And if you know what that is, you get $100. If you care, you get 200. It's statistics that take complexity and make it simple. And so I think, Brenda, if I were putting one bucket around those verbs, and there were a bunch of verbs around self, listen to yourself, love yourself, feel. And then there's a bunch of words around mental frameworks or cognitions: think, perceive, discover, anticipate. And to Oleg's comment, don't just anticipate back, create future. So be comfortable with who I am, envision where I can go. Then there's a bunch of words around others. I love the word, and I didn't get them all down, Alaina, but I got healing, I got service, I got self, and then conceptualize, and then healing. And then the other one is about continuing. My words I wrote down from you were about embrace, that I heard somebody say, anticipate, accelerate, go out and give back to someone else. You know, if I take those 4 buckets, and I'm doing this off the top of my head: self, conceptualize, models, giving back to, or giving to others, and then managing that process of giving by embracing, by learning, by acting, by choosing. What a great set of ideas. And what I like again is, it's going back to English, and Bruce, you're the author, you're the curator of words. I think verbs are the things that make sentences come alive. In fact, one of the advice I give when I grade student papers, get rid of all the is verbs. He is good, he is happy, she is good. Get rid of that, because is a transitive verb. It doesn't say anything. Replace those with action verbs. And what I love that we've just done is come up with a series of actions around 3 or 4 buckets that may help us create that optimism in the world that we all hope we can live in. So that's my summary. Bruce, I'm going to turn to you as our resident wordsmith. You're the author. You work for USA Today. teach us something about words that we should understand.
Wow, that's really that's really tough because, you know, I mean, all of you really are in the same grouping. You know, but I think sometimes you do get into these quality issues, and when people use words, especially in writing, and aren't necessarily careful about it. So, you know that they're good writers, you know that they have really good ideas. They're just not expressing those ideas in the optimum way. So just in kind of thinking about it, taking that little bit of extra time to think about how is it that you're expressing yourself, especially on paper, where something gets lost between the way that you think about it and the way it comes out. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Everybody needs editors in that sense. But speaking with my editor's hat on, I would say just that taking that extra care of what do I want to say, what's the best way to say it, what are the best words that are going to express it.
And if I could only put an addendum, get the verbs right. I just think verbs are action oriented. Accelerate results. Don't just be a part. Accelerate results. Advance something and create, heal. I love the word heal. I think that's such a beautiful word. Care, discover, anticipate. I think the words that you choose, agency, you're responsible for your choice. And if we can help ourselves and others really get the verb right for ourselves, for the other person, for how we think and how we feel. I've now got a 2x2. Maybe then we can begin to help create that optimism and where we go.
Yeah,
I'll stop, Abraham.
There's always tomorrow. There's always tomorrow, and life is how you make it. It's about a mindset. Well, you didn't miss the chance yet. You have a chance to ask a question to our guest of honor. You don't have to ask a question.
I will.
You
Krista,
make a comment.
Krista,
make a comment. Anything.
No, I've made a comment and I should have asked a question. That would be more. Well, I did ask a question. What are the verbs? What excites you about the next generation? You're spending time at Redlands with next generation. And by the way, one of the things about Redlands is good. It's not just 18 to 25-year-olds. It's next generation across age groups. What excites you about the next generation? What gives you a sense of hope and optimism?
They're demanding that we do better. They're coming into the world and they are looking at it and they are saying, do better. And they're telling us what that should look like.
Nice.
And it looks like an inclusive and welcoming community where every perspective is valued and important, and that we care for each other and for the future. I don't know what we did right to deserve it, but by God, they're doing great things. And I think that's what's wonderful. And I think it's just training them to do it. And I think that we have a bright future ahead of us with this next generation of students.
By the way, I feel the same. I'm laughing. My wife and I are teaching a class at a local university one night a month, and they are pushing us. They're saying, I don't want you to just put up a PowerPoint slide you did last year. Yeah. I'm going to demand that you go deeper, that you, and I see Abir laughing because I think that next generation who's pushing I'm older than anyone here, but who's pushing us, don't give me your answer. Don't co-create with me, get by my side. And I love that metaphor, that we are willing to get pushed outside our comfort zones as well. That gives me hope. That's a sweet thing.
And the good thing about it, you're listening and adapting and performing. You're not just saying you don't know, we know better. That mindset changed already. You're adapting to their demands. And Krista, in your leadership at the University of Redlands, we are hopeful. I'm very proud of that you are part of the university. I've been with the university for 20 years as a student, as a mentor, as a professor, and as an alum. So I'm very proud of that and proud of you, and we look forward to your leadership. And thank you for your humility in leadership as well. Dr. Dave?
Abraham, I'm proud to be a part of it, especially with individuals like you who are, the message that you're sharing today, I think is so important. And so thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Dr. Dave, thank you always for honoring us. To Bruce, there's Peter Drucker. To me, sir, you are Peter Drucker of our generation. Especially in the HR field. So we thank you
very much. That's huge.
Yeah, definitely. Especially in the HR field and the theory of the organization guidance system, which you shared with our students and you shared with me as well, and its impact of reinventing HR. That's something else. So we thank you. And you have become, we announced it today, you are a lifetime guest of the Symposium. So you could come anytime, ask the question you want, and you are part of the Symposium. And if I'm not around, you host it and moderate it. So. Dr. Oleg, thank you so much. Thank you for the vision you always bring us. Always a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bruce,
I have learned a ton. Thank you.
We had a good conversation, a lot of contents, and hopefully the audience learned a thing or two. And sorry for all the questions you've asked. I will put those in writing and then forward them to our panelists, and I'll reply back in an email to you. Bruce, thank you so much. Thank you for the excellent work you do at Leader to Leader. As I told you earlier, I have a good greetings and high regards from our Dean, Dr. Tom Horan. He said, say hello to him. I said, I will. So I'm publicly saying it to you.
Yes, thank you. Tom is a great guy and certainly a visionary guy who I got to know through the Drucker world.
Yes, excellent leader. Abir, thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Keep hope alive. I love those shows you do and those segments. They're 5-6 minutes, but very, very nicely done. Thank you so much for coming. Alaina, very good insights. Thank you so much for coming as well.
My pleasure. And thank you to all of the panelists here. I've learned so much from all of you. So thank you for that.
You're most welcome. Brenda, I end up with you. It's morning and it's what is it, 7 in the morning at your place now?
Almost 6 in the morning.
6 in the morning. She started with us at 4 from Singapore. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Delightful. And I love the resonant feeling of this group. Wonderful.
Thank you so much for all of you. Audience, thank you. It's almost 3 o'clock, so we have to call it a day, I would say. So thank you so much for joining us to the second virtual Global Thought Leader Symposium.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Abir. Bye-bye.